Hi, it's Marco, and AMD revenues are on fire. And so the question is, what is the secret sauce? What do they do to actually increase their revenues so much? Well, it's a number of things, and the CEO is actually one of them. So let's have a look at it. So let me set the stage for you. So Wall Street expected an earnings of 119, which was obviously quite high, but instead they got a much higher earnings, which was 135 dollars per share, because we know that AMD along with Nvidia and other companies have been making a lot of money off the chip shortage. Yeah, there's been that over the last months, and people think that potentially this might come to an end in 2022, and obviously this is this year and it might happen anytime. But there is something that just came out and that actually gave us some further clarity on the future of AMD and the revenues. Well, very important is first of all that the gross margin for AMD is actually going up, and this is another important thing, not just the revenues as a whole, but just the fact that the company is becoming more and more profitable, and it was 45% but now is 50%, so that's another 5% of growth. But what is very good to see is that the company outlook for the short term, so let's have a look at the short term first. 2022, we still see a sales gain of about 31%, and that is for this year, obviously, guys, and that's compared with the analyst projection of less, basically. So at least we see that for the short term, for the 2022, AMD is actually a very solid company. Not just that, their revenues are growing so much, but now I promised you that there is something that makes this company a bit of a one of a kind, and I promised to the CEO, and one thing that she said is incredibly important. And by the way, for your information, the CEO is Lisa Su, and she took over in 2015, but what she just released, and this is like the very important thing of this video, if there is one thing to take away, is this: we see secular growth over the next 5 years because people need more computing. So 5 years, guys, 5 years of potential growth. But let me correct myself, it's not really potential growth, it is almost a certainty that AMD as a company is gonna do well. But now let's have a look at the real reason why there is this growth. Okay, the CEO is very confident, but there is something else, something behind. Obviously they are selling products, so there is a product where they are doing very well and they're doing much better than Intel. And this is it, AMD dimensions for success. I don't know what that means, but it's the data center that AMD produces basically. And so based on this article, and I'm not gonna go through the whole article, is that the CEO sees not just in 2022 but also beyond very aggressive growth. And that's again the CEO, Lisa Su, and this is a product that actually has got a lot of good margin. And not just here, there is this chart here showing the margin. Look at the amount of cash that is produced by simply, having a bit of a more economy of scale for these kind of products that are very profitable for AMD, and they can become one of the reasons why this company may do well in the next 5 years or probably even longer. But we know that the business is obviously very important for AMD, but this is not everything. The AMD is also a stock, and as such it follows the market, and there are things that can prop up the stock price, and it's, for example, buybacks. So let's have a look at how much AMD has actually invested in buybacks, and potentially that will give you an understanding of how much the company cares about their investors. So that's AMD, and by the way, this is ticker terminal if you want to have a look, but this is it, the investment in marketable and equity securities. You see that they actually plowed a lot of millions, these are $1 million basically, so much in 2020. They literally plowed over 1 billion, basically $1 billion in their stock. So they bought so much of their stock, and that's something that is obviously very encouraging for investors, long-term investors, because this investment here pumps the stock price. There is no other way to put it. And I said the magic word, pumping the stock. And so is it time then to buy AMD stock? Well, let me show you that there is something that is obviously very important, the big picture, not just Amd Stock. And when I'm talking about big picture, I'm talking about the Fed, because when the Fed has got a very loose money policy, like in this case, like it is happening, the market goes up. Otherwise, if there are other things like high interest rates, the market would just go down. And so we see that this is actually the balance sheet of the Fed. It's basically a measure of how much the money is being pumped into the bond market, into the market basically. And so we see that even over the last year, there is really no slowing down, maybe a little bit of a slowing down, but nothing major. It looks like the market is still in la la land based on this kind of measure, which if you look at the stock market itself, it corrected about 10%, but we are now going up. And so it looks like that we are still being propped up by the Fed, which is actually not great. I don't think this is good news at all. In fact, if the Fed starts really tapering, which is what they are thinking of doing, some of the Fed officials said that they will actually start increasing rates in March. And so they can't really increase rates and at the same time pump money into the market. Just not the way it works. Once they start increasing rates, they will have to interrupt the flow of money that they're injecting into the market. And so at that point, that is going to be an extremely tricky time for the market. And so I think that AMD is an incredibly safe company. Like, you see that the growth is there, the revenues are there, everything is going very well. But if you invest now, you probably have to keep it for at least 5 years, guys, until the Fed will then change their monetary policies, and then we'll see some further growth. Otherwise, the other alternative is for you to actually wait until we see the Fed actually increasing interest rates. That's obviously another option. And also, if more news comes out on AMD, I'm gonna make a new video about it, and at the same time the stock price will go up. So have a look at the subscribe button. That is free. Just tap it gently and join my community. Otherwise, thank you for watching. See you next time.